Hi everyone, I'm Gemma and I'm the service user representative, and I'm here today with Jane McClaren, the clinical manager of the service, and I'm going to be asking Jane some questions. Hi Jane.
Hi there everyone. Hi Gemma.
So we've got quite a few questions to ask you that may be useful for people that are thinking of using the service or already service users. So I'm going to get on and start asking you some questions if that's okay.
Yeah, fire away Gemma.
So the first question I've got for you is, who is the service for?
Okay, so the service is for women and girls. It's a service for trauma and abuse. So if you're a woman or a girl out there, 16 plus, up to any age really, who's experienced trauma or abuse at some point in their life and they're really struggling today, then that's who the service is set up for. So that could be, you know, childhood trauma, abuse, all the way through to, you know, adult domestic and sexual abuse.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
I suppose I might just add there, Gemma, that in terms of who, it's women and girls, as I've just said, but we do like to think of taking referrals into particularly the therapy service where those women and girls are living safely now. So they're not living with domestic and sexual abuse or perpetrators, abusers. They're actually free from that and they're living relatively safely. But of course, we do have a peer support group, and that group, you know, you can join that group if you are still living with perpetrators of abuse, because we're there to support women in those situations as well as those who are separated from that abuse and trauma, and we're going to do some one-to-one therapeutic work with them.
Brilliant, thanks for that. So that's who the service is for. Yeah. My next question is, how, if somebody feels they want to use the service, how can someone get into the service?
Okay, yeah, so there is a bit of a process. So we accept people into the service through a referral form. So that might be, there might be somebody now watching the video and thinking after this, yeah, that sounds like the service for me. So I would suggest that it's a phone call to us, 0114 275 0101, and request the referral form, and we'll send that out either post or email. Complete that form. It has a bit of a criteria checklist at the start, and send it back to us. So that's a self-referral. Yeah. And of course, any professional can use the referral form, obviously with their client's consent and permission, and refer into us. So we get referrals from GPs, from other counsellors, IAPT workers, housing officers, support workers on behalf of clients. So self-referral, give us a ring, we'll send you the referral form out. And the same for professionals really, give us a ring, we'll send you the referral form out.
Brilliant, thank you. So what happens next after somebody has gone through that process of getting a referral sent into the service?
Okay, so the referral part is certainly into the therapy service. I suppose it's worth mentioning, if you want to join the support group, the peer support group, which is really informal, then that's just a telephone conversation to let us know that they want to attend that group, and then we'll give them the kind of how they do that. Because understandably, Gemma, I suppose at the moment, we're in this COVID situation. So currently the service is being delivered online really, via Zoom or telephone, and everything's still running. It's just we're delivering it in this format. So a telephone call to us for any group support. But the referral form, we receive it. And of course, we're going to check it through just in case we need any more information, check that it meets the criteria. And then we'll ring the client and we will book then what we call a screening appointment. An assessment appointment, in other words. That's an hour long. At the moment, that's via telephone or Zoom, or when we're back to face-to-face, you know, people can come into the office for that appointment. And what we're doing in that appointment, we are looking at how their experiences have impacted on them today. You know, what are they struggling with in the here and the now? So it's not coming and having to talk us through, you know, those situations of trauma which They will be not wanting to talk about or trying to get away from. We don't do any of that. We talk about, you know, what's it like today for you and what do you want help with? We also talk about the service, you know, what it looks like, what to expect in the service and how we can help. So we're mutually assessing each other really for suitability to make sure this is the right service for them and it's the right time for them to access it. And if it isn't, there might be other services that might be better suited. They might, you know, have difficulties with housing or benefits or child contact arrangements or family court proceedings. We will help to look at other services that can support them. So the assessment isn't just about, you know, their symptoms, for want of a better word, the things they're struggling with, but those external things as well, you know, all the other things that go on in life that make it really difficult as well. We're always trying to give them something at the end of that appointment that will help that situation. And that might be a referral into our peer support group, or it might be saying, absolutely, this is the right time, and this is what the service looks like, and away we go.
I bet that's really reassuring for some women to hear what you mentioned about that initial screening appointment, that you know, you won't be expected in that appointment to have to explain what it is that you've been through, because I imagine that's one of the things that's quite intimidating when you're looking at referring into a service such as yours. So I bet that's reassuring to a lot of women.
I think you're right, Gemma, and that is, you know, all the time we are learning from women and girls coming into the service, and we know through clinical experience as well as, you know, lots of evidence and research that we don't need to ask people to tell us their stories, because it's about the impact of it today on you. Is it flashbacks that you're experiencing? Is it as if you're back there in the moment and you're frozen? Are you finding it difficult to sleep? Are you hurting yourself in some way to try and cope with the distress of those memories flashing into your head, or those continuous sort of thoughts about yourself that, you know, are about self-esteem and self-worth and confidence? That's what we're interested in knowing about. So you're right, it is really reassuring, because nope, you do not have to tell us your story. You can tell us the impact of it, and we start from there.
That's brilliant, thank you.
No worries.
My next question, so after people have had their initial screening appointment, what is the process from that point on? What happens next?
Okay, so that appointment's finished. We talk them through the service, and the service is a pathway through it. And that pathway is based on different stages of trauma work. Because what we know for sure is women and girls coming into our service have experienced trauma and are showing up today with symptoms associated with trauma. So the evidence highly suggests that we work in this staged approach. And it makes me think of a swimming pool analogy, Gemma. And I'm laughing here because, stay with me, bear with me. If I'm going to teach you to swim, I could just throw you in the deep end, couldn't I? And let's see if you sink or swim.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be very effective. You'd have no trust in me, and you probably wouldn't want to see me again as you come to the surface. So what we like to do is think about the shallow end of the pool. And we're just going to go in there first of all. And what do we give people when we're teaching them to swim? It's a question for you.
Oh, it's a question for me. Armbands or a float?
Yeah. We've got those buoyancy aids, I think we could call them, can't we? Your armbands. So I see stage one of trauma work like that. We're in the shallow end. We're dipping our toes, ankles, legs in. But we're giving people some armbands, some coping mechanisms to deal with the here and the now and that distress. So following that screening appointment, the first thing we offer is stage one work, helping women and girls to manage the distress that they're experiencing. So at that point, we invite women into our full week psychoeducation group. Now that group looks at, first of all, giving women and girls information about trauma and why, even though it might have been years ago, they're still impacted by it today. It still affects them. So we talk about the brain science of trauma, why we are still getting activated into fight or flight, or that freeze state, that sort of flop state. We might call that depression. So we explain that particular brain science. We explain the impact of emotions and behaviours in the here and the now. And that is to help normalise their experiences today. They're not going crazy. These are normal responses on the back of traumatic experiences. Any of us would behave or feel in these ways. And then we look at, okay, what can we do about that then? How are we going to manage when I'm in that high arousal, anxiety state? I might have had flashback nightmares. I'm waking up every night. So those armbands are coming in, Gemma, here. Bear with me.
Yep.
So we're gonna fill those armbands with air, aren't we, to help you stay a bit sort of floating and coping with being in that water in the shallow end. And so we're giving women opportunities to practice coping mechanisms. How do I cope with anxiety or low mood? And then we're also looking at sort of behaviours. We know that our first survival response is that social engagement area. And of course, if we deliver this information and give these coping mechanisms in a group, what we know is, many, many women have told us, being in groups is so beneficial because now I feel like I'm not the only one. And I'm not going crazy because, you know, Doris at the other end described the same kind of symptoms that I've got. So I can't be crazy. And that mutual support is so beneficial because it's engaging that part of the brain, which is about social engagement, feeling a sense of belonging. And we know that's the first stage of our recovery, feeling that connection to other people in the group and to us as a service as well. Yeah. So that's the first stage, shallow end of that swimming pool armbands. Filling them up with air, you know, coping
I do
mechanisms.
Like that analogy. Very good.
I thought you might do. We'll develop it a bit further on, all right?
So that was about, the question that I just asked you was about after the initial screening appointment, what happened next? So you were explaining that people go on to stage 1 work, and that's usually the psychoeducation group that you call the New Beginnings group.
You're right, absolutely. It is called New Beginnings. And I suppose, Gemma, at this moment in time, we're in this COVID situation and we're not doing any face-to-face group work or individual stuff. We're doing everything on this sort of platform on Zoom. Yeah. So that psychoeducation group is being delivered at the moment via Zoom with about sort of 6 women attending it. Yeah. And that's been really good and really positive feedback from those groups.
Yeah, it's amazing that you're still being able to carry on in these times where everything's changing. So I'm sure a lot of women are appreciating the support that they're getting.
Yeah, that social contact, isn't it? Remember that social engagement, really important, feeling part of and belonging to something.
So what happens next after the New Beginnings group, when people have finished that piece of group work? What can they expect after that point within the service?
So after that point, I suppose, before I go into that, I suppose, you know, that bit about the group. We're also, at the moment, I suppose we're thinking about women who, that's too much, especially, you know, technology and Zoom, or even face-to-face coming together at this point might be difficult, mightn't it?
Yeah, so, I mean, I imagine it's quite scary for a lot of women group work, and, you know, a lot of people can feel quite intimidated about that. But I'm sure there's lots of things that are put in place to, you know, help ease people's anxiety with group work and situations like that.
Yeah, you are spot on, Gemma. People are very, very anxious, and I can tell you without a doubt at the end of every one of those assessment appointments, and we talk about the group, it's like, oh, no, that's really scary. So we do our best really to encourage them to come to that group, to support them in some way. When it's face-to-face, meet them at the door, that kind of thing. But there are some that is impossible, or that they do it once, but never again.
Yeah.
Now then, at this moment in time, we are looking at pre-recording those group sessions, and then people can access that in their own time. We'll send them that pre-recorded presentation that gives them all that information, and they can go through that on their own, in their own home, you know, on their laptop, and they can be feeding back comments to us, emailing us in between, you know, that way. So we are still giving that information for those that are absolutely terrified of being in a group situation. So we're trying to meet the needs of those women as well.
That's brilliant. It sounds like you've got a plan that covers every individual situation, really, so that people aren't missing out.
Well, we are trying. Yeah, absolutely. That is our goal, to reach out to those that find it really difficult to get into any sort of group, or even into any face-to-face situation. They can do it, can't they, from a distance? And it's that swimming pool, Gemma. They're really in the shallow end. They're sitting on the edge, really, maybe. Not even got their toe in, but maybe they've got an armband and they've got, you know, a ring around them.
Yeah.
Got me, Gemma, I'm going on.
So I just started to ask you about what happens after the new beginnings group. What's the next step after that kind of phase is finished?
Yeah, really, really good question. So there are 3 exits really of that group, and the facilitators of that group will be talking with the participants at the end about the next stages and thinking about what's best for that particular person. So one exit route is to then go into another group program, and we call this a 12-week therapy group for women and girls who would meet the threshold for post-trauma stress. So they're experiencing flashbacks, they are experiencing nightmares, they are hypervigilant, you know, when you're completely on edge and you think that there is danger everywhere. You're kind of just re-experiencing those trauma symptoms, and as if you're in that trauma or in that situation again, in the here and the now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
And they might be avoiding as much as possible anything at all associated with, you know, for example, news about domestic abuse, EastEnders, when there's, you know, all those things that trigger all those flashbacks and nightmares, if that's what they've experienced. Now then, we go into this 12-week group because that's specifically set up for trauma-focused work. So we do a lot of group work, but then we have 4 individual sessions with the clients, 90 minutes long, each one of these, to go into a bit deeper of the swimming pool now. All right, so you've got your armbands on, so you've got your coping strategies, you feel a little bit better able to manage distress. Now those individual sessions do go into stage 2, and we talk about one of the traumas in detail. We call that kind of exposure imaginal reliving, to help the amygdala desensitize to those flashbacks, those traumas, and also piecing the narrative together, because what we know is then those particular memories are fragmented, they're in the short-term memory, so they keep getting brought right to the front of our attention. We need to process them and put them in our reference library, so they're not getting brought up by triggers in the here and the now. So that's that group, PTSD, trauma therapy group, 12 weeks with 4 individual sessions. Now, another thing we notice about trauma is it really impacts on self-esteem and confidence and all of our thinking. So we're really down on ourselves, really negative. You know, I'm bad, I'm no good, you know, the world is really dangerous and nobody is to be trusted, and our confidence is just diminished. We are piloting this year a new therapy group for women who might not be experiencing those direct flashbacks and nightmares, but the impact has been on their self-esteem and their self-worth. So we do lots of work on all of those, what we call automatic negative critical thinking. and we look at how we can change our way of thinking, and we can do things in the here and the now that build up self-esteem and confidence. It's a bit like reclaiming that sense of self. Who am I? And where am I going now? And how can I do that? So that's another group. So you've got 2 groups. And then the third exit is if those 2 groups are just not suitable for any client, then it's one-to-one work. So we're then moving into one-to-one trauma focused therapy, where they'll see a therapist on an individual basis, and they will go through the process that way. Wow. So there are your exits. From stage 1, I'm in the shallow end. I'm learning some new ways to manage this distress. Stage 2 is about working on those deeper memories. So now we're in the deep end of the pool, aren't we? We've still got our buoyancy aids, and we can manage that distress. Not brilliantly, but we can still kind of manage it. And we've got the therapist there to help us in case we sink under and we have to come back up again. And so, you know, that there's your stage 2 work, covering post-trauma stress, low self-esteem stuff, or individual program.
Brilliant. I think it's really good that you've got different routes within that, because it recognises that everybody's an individual and it's not one type of treatment fits all, really. So it's really good that you've got those options, I think.
I love that phrase, not one, what was it? Not one what?
Not one kind of treatment fits all. It's having an individualised approach, isn't it? And you know, you've got space to look at which is the most appropriate pathway for the client within that stage 2 work.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it is in those stages. And we really, you know, look at what's the best for this client. And listen, none of us get everything right all of the time, do we? But we're really flexible. You know, for example, you might find yourself, that PTSD group is great, and you have those individual sessions, but you know, that's not the end of the story. They might need more individual sessions. So then we'll say, okay, we'll review, and now let's do some more individual sessions. And we're really flexible. And I'm really glad you picked up on that. Yeah, it's individualized. We're trying to meet individuals' needs within a framework around the best ways of working with trauma, so that we don't re-traumatize people. We're helping them to go through that swimming pool, aren't we? Shallow end, getting those strategies to cope with, processing, making sense, Gemma, of our experiences. You know, that's a really massive step forward, is putting it all together, making sense of it, and really having a look at it. But we can only do that with our kind of armbands. How do I manage that distress? Because that's really scary work.
It is. So I've got one final question for you, but before I ask you that one, it's just a quick one. Can I just go back to, you were saying about, we were talking about the stages, and I think at the beginning of the interview you said there were 3 stages, and I think we've touched on the first stage and the second stage. So what is the third stage? Is just a quick question.
Third stage, good. I'll try and be quick in my answers. So third one, you remember, now we've got that peer support group, haven't we?
Yeah.
The third stage of trauma work is about, and I love this phrase, reclaiming life. I think it's about reclaiming myself as well. What am I interested in? Engaging in life activities, and really what we do know. And that's why also we set up groups as well, is abuse and trauma is very isolating, isn't it? And you feel like you're the only one, and that you're going crazy, and it is shrouded in secrecy. So actually, you know, that social engagement is really important, and that's a bit of reclaiming life, getting back to connecting with, you know, healthy relationships and healthy activities. So it's the third stage in our service runs through the whole of it, really, because we've got that peer support, and that's a really good place to get that emotional support, that practical support, feeling part of a group, making friends, reconnecting with life, really, thriving instead of just trying to cope with this distress that I'm in at the moment.
So that's where you'd have took your armbands off with your swimming pool analogy, is it?
Wow, Gemma, you're with me.
I wasn't listening.
Yeah. Now then, take them off. I'm off. But I suppose You know what? We all need those armbands sometimes, though. So sometimes you might have to swim to the side, get your armbands again. You might have to swim to the side and make a telephone call back to us and go, do you know what? I think I need a booster session. I've lost my armbands. So they can come back in, and they can come for booster sessions. They can come back into our service or into the peer support group for some blowing up of those armbands again.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're with me, Gemma. Like-minded.
I've just got one last question for you.
Really?
Kind of follows up what you were saying about sessions, and how many sessions can someone expect to have when they're referred into the service?
Okay. Well, on the tip of my tongue was forever, but that's not true. Okay. We've set the service up again. As I say, it is based on evidence. We're not just plucking numbers out of air. But we tend to say up to 20 sessions. That's like, 6 months to a year sort of work is the kind of first port of call. And I must say that's flexible. It could be that there are some women who will need more. There are, of course, some women and girls who might need less. So again, it's individualised. But sometimes we do say, well, I think 20 might be a good point to consolidate what we're doing, go away, do some reclaiming life work, and then, that swimming pool, if you find yourself getting to the edge again, give us a ring and we'll come back in and maybe do stage 2 work at that point. You see how that's a bit flexible? Yeah. Instead of saying, right, keep coming until, that could be years and years. So we're trying to say, all right, stage 1 is done and we've done 20 sessions, let's say. Okay, let's just have a bit of a therapeutic break and get get used to swimming, and then come back in, a few months' time, and we'll go into the deep end very gradually. So we're trying to be really flexible, but if we offered everybody, 40, 50, 60 sessions, we'd never, we've got a whole lot of women who need to be seen. Hence, we've got that pathway so we can get in there with that early stuff as soon as possible after that initial assessment. That's really going to help. And then just trying to make it flexible, but not open-ended. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I think that's all my questions that I had for you, Jane. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to answer them. And I don't know if you've got anything else you want to say. I think I've questioned you enough.
You did a brilliant job. Yeah, you're a very good interviewer. I think we need to do it again. Okay?
Yes, definitely.
So, anybody watching us out there, keep looking, because any questions, maybe we'll be back. We'll be back. All right then, Gemma, it's been lovely to see you.
All right, thank you, Jane.
You have a good rest of the day.
I will. Bye.
And bye everyone out there watching.
Bye.
Bye.